Hello, General Washington here with a different type of video. I thought I would talk one of the most iconic if not the most iconic starships. The Constitution-class starship. Construction of the Constitution-class began in the 2240s at the Navy Yards in San Francisco and Tranquility Base located on the Moon. Dr. Richard Daystrom designed the computers while Lawrence Maverick was responsible for designing the controls for engineering. The Constitution class was the first of its kind because it was able to go on 5-year missions and could travel at Warp 8 and Warp 9 in extreme circumstances but was not recommended due to the risk it posed to the ship and crew. Obviously the Enterprise was always ignoring that since Kirk and Scotty pushed the limit. Originally the crew complement was only 203 in the 2250s but by the 2260s that had increased to 430. The Constitution class featured the saucer section, secondary hull, engineering section, and warp nacelle layout common to most Starfleet vessels. All ships of the class of the same level of refit appeared to be identical at first glance, but when one takes a closer look minor detail differences on certain vessels can be seen. Here's a side-by-side comparison. Notice the deflector dish and the warp nacelles are slightly different. The deflector on the ship from the pilot episode with Captain Pike is larger and the nacelles have needles extruding from the buzzards. Not to mention the dome of the bridge is different. The original version had the bridge raised and what looks like a large window in front. Also the nacelles had grills on the back. The Constitution class was a science vessel, it had 14 science labs in total. However, that doesn't mean the ship couldn't engage in battle, it was capable of defending itself when necessary. The Constitution was armed with phaser banks, which could fire up to approximately 90,000 kilometers. Originally the configuration had several forward phaser emitters located on the lower part of the ventral side of the saucer section. Aft firing banks were located above and below the shuttle bay on the secondary hull. There were also port, starboard, and midship phasers. Early designs of the Constitution-class ships originally mounted 6 forward torpedo tubes on the underside of the saucer section, and 1 aft-mounted tube at the end of the secondary hull. This combined arsenal was powerful enough to destroy the entire surface of a planet. I had to rely on Memory Alpha for information regarding the shields. The Constitution-class starship had a powerful deflector shield grid in the 2260s. The shield grid was divided into 4 segments, referred to as number 1 shield, number 2 shield, etc. T.O.S. Journey to Babel, Elon of Troyes, at full power, with the warp reactor tied into the shield system. It was capable of absorbing and repulsing a bombardment of energy impacts equal to the detonation of 360 photon torpedoes of the type the Enterprise was equipped with at the time, before the shielding power was completely lost. In 2267, for example, the Enterprise survived an attack from the Nomad probe. Nomad fired 4 powerful bolts of energy, each with the equivalent force of 90 photon torpedoes. The first hit reduced shielding power only by 20%. After being hit with the equal force of 270 photon torpedoes, warp maneuvering power was lost. Shields were lost with the 4th hit. T.O.S. The Changeling. The deflector shield grid was much more vulnerable to intense standard phaser bombardment. In 2268, an Orion scout ship was able to cause buckling in some of the shields of the Enterprise after it had made just 5 attack runs on the ship. On the 7th run, the Enterprise lost one of its 4 shields. T.O.S. Journey to Babel. Other more powerful weaponry could take the shields down even more easily. The Planet Killer, for example, could completely deplete a Constitution-class starship's shielding power with only 3 hits with its anti-proton beam. T.O.S. The Doomsday Machine. The diversion of all but emergency maintenance power to the shields had the adverse effect of reducing phaser power by 50%. T.O.S. The Tholian Web. A single detonation of a nuclear warhead less than 100 meters away could cause internal overloads on the ship and leak radiation through the shields to the outer regions of the ship. T.O.S. Balance of Terror. Without the warp reactor to power the shields, the system was not very effective in protecting the ship. With only the impulse reactors powering the shields, a D-7 class Klingon battlecruiser could deplete a Constitution-class starship's shielding power with only few passes of disruptor fire. T.O.S. Elon of Troyes. Extravehicular transporter to and from the ship was accomplished by a number of transporter systems, which allowed the crew and/or equipment to be transported over large ranges. The transporter platform featured 6 pads, which were numbered clockwise, beginning with the right front. A redesigned field generator matrix was mounted into the rear wall of the chamber aboard the refit configuration Constitution-class starships. On the original Constitution-class starships, a sickbay facility was located on Deck 6, which featured an examination room, a nursery, the chief medical officer's office and a medical lab. At least one other medical lab was located elsewhere on the vessel, and was used for biopsy, among other things. Sickbay was considered the safest place to be on the ship during combat. Other stations on the bridge were provided for communications, engineering, weapons control, gravity control, damage control, environmental engineering, science and library computer, and internal security. All stations were normally manned at all times. Mounted into the room's forward bulkhead was the main view screen. Visual sensor pickups located at various points on the Constitution-class outer hull were capable of image magnification and allowed a varied choice of viewing angles. My favorite part of any ship. Main engineering. Main engineering, the heart of the ship, was from where the ship's warp was controlled. All thrust and power systems were primarily controlled from this site, and it is also where the main dilithium crystal reactor was located. Life support was controlled separately from Deck 6. Thank you for watching, and until next time, General Washington out.